Evening everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar. In the next hour or so, just over, we'll be looking at how you might coach futsal at various ages. So we'll look at some examples from the foundation phase, players age 7 to 12, youth development phase, age 12 to 16, and then older players and into open age. Geoff, if we can start with you, talk to us about Wessex. What's the setup look like?
So Wessex Futsal Club is started the youth age groups in 2019, and we've started from secondary school ages. So we start under 12s and we go in double age bands, so they're 11s and 12s. The next age groups 13s or 14s, and then the youth final ages 15s and 16s, before hopefully progressing on the senior men's team.
Brilliant. And you have links with a local soccer school or something?
Yeah, so before the under 11s and 12s, there's a local soccer schools called Pezza Street Soccer, and they're very individual futsal-based soccer schools that really focuses on helping children in their youth development phase.
And Sam, how does this compare to what Manchester looks like?
No, it's very similar. Ilya and the other coaches, they probably started in 2012, 2013 and focused on the foundation phase. And I think we've ended up going to the same brackets that Geoff was talking about, the 8s, the 10s, the 12s and the 14s, up to the 16s. We work in the midweek, so Monday to Friday. Very similar challenges, trying to get games on Saturdays and Sundays with the conflict. So we found that Friday was actually the best evening. So we had a pretty successful Friday night league that was getting all the teams coming in. Kind of got disrupted because of COVID, but that's something that we're gonna bring back because obviously we want them playing regularly. But yeah, again, all the players are pretty much football, futsal. So you know, I'd say like 95% of the players are doing that. Good thing more recently, I'd say, is a lot of the players that are getting towards the tail end of the under 16s, the youth development phase ages, they're choosing futsal when it comes to that age where they've kind of got to focus on what they want to do. So. But yeah, most of the kids lower down in foundation phase and the early age groups are football and futsal.
This is an after-school club at a primary school that I actually went to back in the day. It was raining outside. You can see there's a lot of children, so we just try to maximise the space and the playing time, and gone across. You know, some coaches might look at the space and think it's tiny, but just trying to show you what you can do and maximise the time playing. So we've got 3v3s going across one badminton court on a very small basketball court, if you like. And I think the next slide, the next video is the same session on a different after school club. Time just using the space slightly differently. This time the court's slightly bigger. It might be a 4v4 rather than a 3v3. I think they are playing to lines there, but we quite often just have the coaches go around the room and try and keep the ball in play, a bit like Sam said. And then we've just got behind one of the goals, we've got a soccer matrix, so they're getting a measurable way of passing and receiving. It'll give them a score after 10 passes or something. The next person jumps in and has a go and try to beat their score.
You mentioned earlier you have different skills over the course of a block of work. Tell us, I think again we've got some video here to show what that might look like, how that works.
Yeah, so I think our approach is football is a team game, but it's played by individuals. So we kind of see our job is to try and give each individual all the skills we possibly can and to stretch them whichever stage they're at. So this is on a holiday camp in Andover. You can see there's loads of kids. They'll be from school year 1 to 6, and they're kind of separated in the hall. Year 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s and 6s on the other half. And there'll be some peer-to-peer learning going on, as you can see there. One of them showing a fake and a step over combined. And then some of them are working at their own speed. One thing I really like about the ball each is generally kids will just get a ball and they'll start working. They're not really concerned with anybody else. They're just going to leave that sports or a better player before they came in. And I think that's about as much fun and enjoyment as you get. For me, as a kid, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to score and be a better player. Then the kids go and try it, and we put the cones out as a reference point, and it's quite nice to give those cones different defenders' names from the Premier League or like I said to you the other week, I'm a bit older than them, so for me it'd be John Terry and Rio Ferdinand, but they'll probably pick Virgil van Dijk and so on, and then use their imaginations, because it is unopposed, but it's a really tricky skill to master and then just go straight into a game and expect to use it. So to break it down unopposed and then think about the timing, because we'll often say if you do it too early, there's no point in doing a skill. If you do it too late, you're going to lose the ball, get tackled. So working on that timing sometimes, rather than just moving around in a space with a ball each, if you're ready to move on to the next, and the next thing might be doing it against a passive defender and then an active defender, putting real pressure on you before going into small-sided game scenarios and getting a chance to practice it and make mistakes and have the freedom to do that. And when it comes off, like this next video, you can really celebrate it.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, that's quality.
It's a magic move.
I like this.
Look at the reactions of, oh, you as the coach. Talk about a playful environment. I know Peter Sturgis would be talking about foundation phase, playful, and that's exactly what you're creating here. And the other players on the other pitch, on the other court, their reactions. Look, that kid there in the blue bibble when it's trying it himself.
Yeah. So this isn't a typical setup. So we normally go half court, so 2 badminton courts, but this night we went 3 netball thirds. So you can see where the red flat discs are marking out their court. So in the middle pitch, they've got a small one. You can see a small goal there just in the foreground. So this was just a really good way of maximising the space again and playing 3v3s rather than 4v4s, and not having anyone sat out, for example, and just had perfect numbers that night to do 3v3s on every court. And then they get to play each other and rotate around and get different experiences against different players and different scenario pitches, if you like.
Just wanted to raise this point about skills. I mean, at the FA, we've got these core skills. We've got 5 attacking core skills, 5 defending. We've talked a lot about skills and just been referring to flicks and tricks, which probably come under versions of moving with the ball. You mentioned at the start, there are other skills that you practice. Do you practice passing, receiving, turning, or do you do more of these kind of fancy tricks?
Yeah, so those 2 clips have probably come from the Pez's Academy, that probably come within a week or 2 of each other when we're working on what you've called moving with the ball. We might call that skills to beat a player, but we also have turning, we also have passing and receiving, and we have maybe some more flicks and tricks, which I think really builds confidence, which is, we call it freestyle. So in that, there'll be keepy uppies, first touch, control, balance, and lots of things that we can really go in depth on that maybe other environments wouldn't see the benefit of, because you might not use it in a match. But I think if you look at all the really confident, skillful players and that have ever been, they can all juggle a ball and they can all do it around the world, if you like, and all these kind of things. And building confidence is a massive part of what we do. So it will be all of those things plus possibly a little bit more.
Geoff, I said, and actually someone in the chat box has mentioned it, really interesting, very important, vital players can stay on the ball, master the ball. Pete Sturgis has been talking about that for years. People think of futsal, some people, as a flicks and tricks game, but those that have been in it a while and know it actually is more of a pass and move game. And there comes a point where players, 2-player moves, working with the person next to you is such a massive part of the game. More than 50% of goals in futsal and football come from 2-player connections in the lead up to the goals. So at what point do you move this kind of individual base of training towards a working with a mate? Just some examples. I know there's a lot of people talking about courses. The National Futsal course will cover these particular moves. The UEFA C in football also covers these moves because they are so important in both formats of the game. So these are some of the things we might see. In futsal, you might know a diagonal run as a parallel pass down the line, but essentially we're saying the same thing. So yeah, some of the examples that we might come across: screens and blocks, for those quite a few new to futsal on the call, something a bit different where you pass to your teammate and then run between them and their direct defender to just give them a bit of time on the ball. They're sort of things that you might start to see, like Geoff says, in these upcoming videos. I think it's interesting with this practice design as well, where you put the jokers or the floaters. I do think that will impact what 2-player moves you get out. If you put the jokers on the side, for example, you probably get different types of moves to when you put them in front of players. And the other thing that's interesting is the amount of space they need. It's brilliant because we're trying to use the whole court, but actually there isn't much space for the players to break into beyond the defenders. So I was thinking about when we do practices, how do we, first of all, get the defenders to press the ball and then leave enough space that we can run into and break into. Sam, is this similar to the sort of stuff you'd do?
Yeah, we start trying to explore combinations with the players, like the 2s and 3s. Earlier on in the youth development phase, it probably focus more on these paired movements. So maybe playing off a reference point, like a pivot, like Geoff set up here. And then, moving through. So I would be mucking, because I'd be doing till the tail end of that. I'd probably be working more with the 5v5s. But I think before that's what the guys would be focusing on. Loads of pair movements, 1-2s, parallels, and then developing that. And then giving them the opportunity to explore themselves, like Geoff was saying before, setting up the scenarios and letting them see what works.
And there's lots of things you can work on. Charlie Budd's our goalkeeper and goalkeeper coach. He's just received it with a little elastico, so showing it off his individual footwork. It's a good thing to do for the goalkeeper in the room, which is Liam Paul Freeman's younger sibling, actually. So it's really good as well if you can get access to futsal players and people in the futsal community. They'll generally be really giving of their time, and they want to come in and they want to help your club out or wherever you're coaching, just to pass on some of their advice. And having Liam come along as a special guest and then get involved in a session has really helped this group, because we've gone from doing a 3 in a line as a straight line drill to this is a 4v2 practice that I call Dutch keep ball, where there's 2 players defending. When they lose the ball, they've got to sprint back to the defensive D. The other 4 make 5 passes and they're live to score. And within this, they're trying to set up a 3 in a line as a way to break down the 2.
Thanks, Geoff. A real insight into kind of what Wessex looks like, building from an individual into 2 players, and how you continue to use role models throughout that. It'd be really interesting to hear what all this looks like when you get into that 16 plus, under 18s, senior setup. Talk us through how all the messages we've heard so far fit with Manchester, and where the link between youth and adult is.
Well, yeah. So I think obviously if we use the previous slide, just as that's the phases of the game, we're really honing on getting through the details of those. So the base level at under 16s, they're getting introduced to these ideas. The transition is a big one. I think the nature of the game, the speed of the game, it's also the psychological element of transitioning from either being in possession of the ball and then out of possession and vice versa. The speed of your decision making. So there's loads of things that are not necessarily something that you can do just with a ball, 1v1. So I think they're the kind of things that we hone on in the first one. We're just working in possession movements. It's a really simple possession that we do. We can do it as a warm up or just an extra exercise. And basically it's 3 teams. So 3 teams of 3. So we play, if you want to get into the details, we play more of a 4-0. So we don't necessarily play with like a reference player higher up, like a target player or a pivot. We play more of a flat 2 backmen, 2 wingers, moving around, trying to bring defensive lines into one line to then exploit the space behind. So in this game, it's basically we're setting up as a 4 and they're defending as a 3. So in this scenario, the 3 players in green. So if I just pull it back, there's 3 players in green. If you can see 3 players in green, and then there's 3 players in purple, and then I need 1 player from the other team to make it a 4. So they've always got to think about the balance, even if their team's not involved directly. And then what we can do is condition the game. So what I wanted from the players is to show in the middle. So if we had 2 players to start, a winger and a winger, I want one of the players, whoever it may be, to show in the middle, receive in the middle, and then play it back before it can go to the other side. And that's to try and get them to be moving, but also showing in the middle, receiving the ball. The other condition is if you have the ball on one wing and you have a player in the middle, you can play a 3 in a line pass across the other wing. So it's, again, we've seen it in the earlier stages with Geoff, and it's a concept that we'd still apply in the senior team. So if you look at his movement, he's behind his defender. So this is more of a backdoor movement. So this is not a movement that you necessarily would get out of football because of the offside rule as it comes in, but this is something that's important in futsal, working behind a defender. So he looks to come out and pretend to go to the winger space, but he recognises the defender's not watching him. And as we move, so there, he's staying where he is. And as it moves, he cuts back in. So he's just come back in. The defender's recognised it, but not quickly enough. And it's a great pass from Scott as well. So all of these things are tying in of the exercise that we do. Obviously, the player on the ball needs to have the awareness to make the pass. They need to have the technical ability to be able to execute this, but you also need to be working off the ball as well.
Without the technical ability of the players on the ball, where it's almost autonomous and they're not having to think about what they're doing with them, these things don't come to life, do they? So, yeah, it's just magic to watch.
Yeah, I think one of the things with what we try and do as you're getting older with the under-16s, that the end of the the end of the youth development phase, is you're trying to work on their decision making, the perception, what information they're bringing in. So obviously they have got their direct defender, but they've also got other teammates to consider, the space, the time that they're on, other defenders, the scenario of the game. So you want to obviously work on how much information they're taking, what they value in that decision making, and then what Geoff's done at the foundation phase, and that's, you want to work on what they can do for their action. So you're talking before, can they go left and right? Well, if you can do that, they know that's an option already. If you can only go right, then that's reducing what you can do, and that's affecting your decision. So this is how it all links in. This is a clip of us showing in the middle. So this is from the first exercise that I showed before, trying to get the players to show in the middle and receive the ball, be an option. So I think firstly Scott shows in the middle here, and then Uriel then shows in the middle later on. So that's trying to show that how we try and get the players to make these movements, and then can they recognise them in the game scenario.
If you take that back as well, Sam, to that last clip, I think you can see these two player moves, the impact they have, even if the players don't get the ball. So here, I think play it through. Play it through. I think it's going to go wide at some point. Right, this guy in the middle, 18, right, he's passed it and he's made a diagonal run. Now it could be, like you said, it's up to the players. If the player on the far side now receiving it passes it down the line, you might have your diagonal run for your straight pass or your parallel pass down the side, and you might get in. But on this occasion, the player's chosen to do something different. But I think it shows, going back to your point, Geoff, with the core moves, the two-player stuff, they're happening all the time. And when the players can start to see where they fit in the bigger game, even if they don't play that pass, it'll still take a defender away and provide another option for somebody else. So the two-player moves are in here as well. With the women's team at Manchester play the same way?
So the previous coach that we had before was Sergi. He's a Spanish coach, and he did is definitely more similar the way the men's and the women's were set up. He had his own game model. I think for me and probably where the club's gone is we're a little bit more we base it more on the players that we've got available. So obviously I've got my own beliefs, and for example, Neil's now taking over the women's team. He's got his own beliefs, but we'll also talk and we'll want the players to have certain attributes when they're coming through. But I think it also depends on your players that you've got available. So like we were talking before about the 3-1 system, the 4-0. If you've got 3 pivots and then you make them all play 4-0, then are you playing to your strengths?
Sam's talked a lot about 1-4-0, and he has talked about the fluidity and depending on your players, what system, and you talked about your 2-player moves, your 3-player moves. What system do you play at Wessex?
So we try and play a lot more 4-0 now, but I like it to be fluid. So it might start as a 4-0 and end up in a 3-1 and then come back round to a 4-0 again. Whereas when I first got involved in futsal, it was much more basic. It was, who's my target man? Get them at the top. Let's hit the pivot and get our wingers joining the pivot. If we lose the ball, just drop back in a deep diamond, and probably was the Sam Allardyce of the futsal world, if you like. But I've tried to be a bit more creative with the players that I've got now that may be more suited, a bit like Sam's group, that can play 4-0 and depending on the game scenario and the situation.
But I think that's really important, though, about the players that are coming through. So players are playing futsal, so they are more adaptable now. I think in the past you had to teach the game at that stage, whereas now they're coming through with some more of the tools and the understanding of the game. So it allows us as coaches to be able to be a little bit more fluid and adaptable as well with them.